comfortable, right? Is this
Yeah.
in your neck, or is it like turning your jaw away type of thing?
They're turning my jaw.
Okay. But then he's got his weight shifted down to your hips?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is from here, and is this, just so I'm clear, is this more like he's got his arm across here and putting
Arm.
weight kind of?
Yeah, it's the arm across and then the other arm on my neck.
Okay, so this is like this. It's basically like it is like he's about to pop up, maybe his
Yeah.
knee onto you, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, yeah. So from here, go ahead. So if my chin is turned, what I'm going to have to do in a lot of cases is move this way first. But the first thing is, right, where are my arms? Okay, because that's going to matter as well. And what I always prefer to do, if possible, is to have my near side arm. So the upper forearm part is on his hip. Okay, I don't want to put my palm there, because if he switches his hip, it can damage my wrist. And the other one, I always want to be pointing towards the underhook, okay, if possible. Now, that won't always happen, right? But that's usually where I start, because from here, sort of before Arthur can get even settled into position, right, I could potentially be bridging here and getting right into my fully bladed on my side position, and go into, if he's trying to be really tight to me, like trying to flatten me out, I could go into iron pillow and all that stuff. If he's playing more a little bit more up and off me, trying to be floaty, I could just go like right to my knees. But the main thing from there, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is when somebody's trying to put a lot of weight on you, is that you're going to try and connect to them from the bottom, not just bridge into them. Because when you bridge into them, they push back into you and they cancel you out, basically, right? Because my body is sort of like a board here. And when I start to drive into somebody, I'm going to run into them here, like that could be their chest, or it could be his forearm, like kind of stops me. But I actually run into my partner. And then if they push in off the balls of their feet into me, it kind of stops me. But from here, if you come on top again, right, what I'm doing in this case is I'm actually pushing back into Arthur a little bit from here. And then instead of trying to turn into him when he's got my jaw turned away, what I'm actually doing is once I push into him, I draw the connection. So now we move together, right? I'm not bridging into him and having his body stop me. I'm pressing into him. So now when we move as one. And what I'm going to do is bridge up really high and then pivot and use his body to pivot my hips away. So from here, bridge. And then the last little bit from there, right, if you see it, so I bridge, and then I actually use this because I already started to pressure into him in the beginning. So once I bridged all the way up high like this, then I actually use my shoulder to move my hips away from Arthur. And the last piece is to rotate my shoulder down like this, so sort of slides off of his chest. And there's no way for him to really keep that pressure into me anymore, okay?
Okay.
That's sort of like the fundamentals of like how to change your bridge to make it more effective with less energy and feel like you're not constantly just running into somebody when you try and bridge, okay? But the other thing is, okay, from here, so he's kind of doing this, he's super heavy, right? Let's say my arms aren't in that position and he's really got my jaw turned away, right? What I might also do from here is bridge into him and go this way, right? Because it's kind of turning my jaw away to such a degree sometimes that it's much more comfortable for me to go with it. But the idea in this case is once I get to my side, okay, kind of want to do the same thing where if you've seen this before, this is sort of like reverse iron pillow. If he wants to stay tight to me, that's when we use iron pillow. If he wants to be like up and off me and like trying to jump on me or something, I wouldn't need to do this. But let's say he wants to be tight. So what I want to do is keep him from getting under my arm. And this one, left arm, getting in here, right? Because this is where he's got all his chokes, he's got back control, all that stuff. So from here, what I want to do is keep my elbow buried in the notch of my hip and keep my ear to my shoulder. So right now, Arthur's going to try and find a way in. Go ahead. Good. And see how he's trying to get around my neck, and I keep my ear to my bicep. Good. He's trying to get under my arm, right? Can't get it. But look from here. Once he reaches high and I can get my arm underneath, now watch. Pressure up in there. Okay, be heavy, be heavy. So, you know, even if somebody's tight on me, I can keep them from improving their position pretty well because I don't let them underneath my arm. I don't let them around the noose of my neck. And then I always have the option to go out the back door, right? Even if they're tight.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's things like running man escape where maybe he's not really holding, you know, he's behind me, but he's not quite as tight. He's not holding on to everything. But from this position, let's just look at that again. Okay. Anytime that I can come underneath here like this, it's very strong because what I'm not trying to do is like a muscle move with my arm against all of Arthur's weight, like that, like I'm not going to be able to do it. But watch, if I just raise my elbow into his armpit at the same time I change my angle from here, okay? See it? Right? It's actually really mechanically strong. Doesn't take much effort whatsoever. Make sense? Well, it's going to be a little bit different, okay, from here, but it is better that he's not mounted on me, that's for sure, right? Because right here, he's got his chest behind my tricep, so that's not going to work out for me very well, right? To try and turn back into him, it's going to make it worse. And meanwhile, he can start to improve his position. Okay, so he can start to get this other arm working for him and everything, right? So one of the things I'm thinking of from here is, well, let me just ask you guys, what's the direction I can go? Can go belly down, right? So the first thing I'll do, right, is I don't want this arm to further control me. So you'll notice this is pulled pretty tight. There's no way for me to go this way. But what I do have the option to do, especially if I don't hang out forever, is to go here. Right? So it's actually not that hard. And one of the things that happens with people is they get so kinked up in this position that they start to try and go in that direction, kind of feeling that there's no way for me to go this way. And then they start to go like this, and they basically have like speed bumps with their own elbows, right? This gets stuck, I get stuck on my own arm, right? And then this one I run into with my arm here. So you notice that what I was doing is I'm still keeping this kind of in the iron pillow position, even though this one's compromised. And then from here, okay, go ahead, grab that again for me, right? Even though Arthur's got that pulled back really tight, yep, and his chest is definitely heavy behind my shoulder. See how that's really hard to stop? And the thing is, sometimes people say, well, what if he just jumps on mount right there? So the thing is, I'm not bringing my hips up off the mat, even in the slightest. When I make that motion, show it real quick. It's very important. So when I make that, I'll just show it myself. So I make that motion, okay, from here. You'll notice that when I roll through, my hips aren't pressed into the mat at some point. There's never any daylight showing underneath. So the thing is, although it's possible while I'm doing that for him to throw a leg over, he shouldn't actually be able to get underneath my hips and my thigh, which means that I always have the option, right, to go into one of my primary escapes from mount. But the priority there is before I can think about doing that, I need to unwrap the gift wrap. So, okay.
Is called, but Jeff has been getting me gi and no gi in this weird, I'm in the bottom, he's in the top position, and I can see him in camera. And I just it got harder to get out of it. I tried like one little escape to get out of it, But in the gi, I just get really caught up, and I maybe.
So you'll recognize it, coach. It's a position I was talking to you about, where to attack from a north-south position, head in the sternum, hands, arms are inside control, hands at the hips. I was telling you, John Connors and I were talking about it a while ago.
It's
I
terrible.
don't know if you remember, but no. So
yeah,
you can see. I use my hands on the inside here. I get inside control inside the armpits with my elbows, and then depending on how much of a there are kids here jerk I'm being, I use my head pressure right below the sternum and the diaphragm to kind of really staple. So I'll start playing in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends. What motion is to go this way to push back to create space. And what I've been doing is killing it. So I kind of sprawl back on it, and then I attack the arms. I use it to attack Kimuras a lot.
Yeah.
And she's trying to figure out how the hell do her best options there. Because I know pushing away is an option, but then I already started working on the second part, which is kill the arm as she pushes away and then rotate the attack.
Yeah, exactly.
What to
Okay.
do.
So, and let me go back for just a sec, Vic. Let me see where your arms are when that's
Okay.
going on.
I'm going to relieve some pressure so you can see better.
Yep.
So on the inside here, she's going to her hands to my ribs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sometimes I'll go to the hips and like fist to try it, but then
Yeah.
I'm just like flattened, and I have to try and I don't know.
I'm going to say like a reverse scarfold, depending on how they move.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure. Exactly. That's what you should be doing from top. So, because the thing is from there, if you try, you have two things you can do usually where you extend all the way to the hips. One of them is, can you kick your legs all the way up and put your feet in the hips and kind of like come out the back door? But if he blocks you with his head in your hips to stuff that, or he's able to keep his head low enough on your abdomen so your hips can't come all the way up to reach, then it'll be a pendulum. And then when you start to pendulum left, right, he'll sit out the other direction. When you start to pendulum right, he'll sit out the other direction, right? And there you know, that's the game from top. But kind of along the same lines of what we were just talking about, if you take that position, let's go from the side. So, yeah, right there. So you're in here, right? So the one thing that I do have the option to do is turn in the space that I'm in, but it's going to be really hard if I try and roll like outside the frame that I'm currently occupying, right? So like in other words, if I were trying to roll towards the camera and I'm trying to cover any distance in that direction, like move my body from here over to here, it's going to be really hard to do that because Arthur's locked onto my body and he's got a lot of pressure into me. But what I can do, okay, from here is instead of thinking like pushing on the hips, that may not work, right? Is from here, I kind of set myself up for rotation. And really for me to be able to rotate, it's the same thing I was just talking about. I cannot get caught up on my own arms. So one thing is I've got a pretty good path with this top arm because his hips are up. And this one, right, as long as I don't get it caught underneath me, I'm in pretty good shape. So from here, one of the things that I like to do when the hips are up like this is just like a little bookmark. And this one, I want to make sure that I can get my elbow all the way through. And then from here, you notice when I reach that I can follow that. And then what happens, there's a little bit of a movement here where most of the time, he's going to want to sit out towards my back this way. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's very important because of that ability. He can move quite quickly in that direction. That I turn in the, like I said, in the same cylinder of space that I already occupy. Because the one advantage I do have is that I can turn on a smaller axis than the person on top, even though he's already like halfway in that direction. So from here, right, once I come through, I know he can sit in that direction, but I'm already, if you see it, okay, I'm already starting to thread this through nice and low. So even if he sprawls on it, I'm in pretty good shape, right? And I can actually come up and open up this whole direction. So when he goes to turn the corner, I can kind of cheat that angle a little bit tighter than he should be able to spin there. Does that make sense?
I think so. And are you doing like a little bridge and then like a popcorn bridge and then shooting?
Not even a bridge. No, I'm literally just rotating through within that space. So let me go at this angle. So I'm just going to show it in the air for a second.
Okay.
So if I'm going to go and turn in this direction, right, this is what will get me crushed. Okay. See how I actually am like rolling out of my frame?
Yes.
But from here, okay, you'll notice I just put a little bookmark. My arm's kind of crossing because I want to make sure this whole elbow can come through. And then I want to make sure that I don't get stuck on my own tricep because it's like a speed bump. It'll kill my entire movement. And then when Arthur does inevitably switch to my back and he's got all the pressure on me, I'm going to feel like I'm getting crushed in that position. So from here, bookmark, this one's already starting to X its way through. My feet will make a little slalom, okay, off to the side, but I haven't actually shifted my position. And then when I move, okay, I'm actually moving in the same frame. And this arm is shooting through, thumb down. And then the moment that I feel, so if he goes this way, that's good for me. Most likely he's going to make a switch in that direction. But you notice that because my arm is actually come underneath, my elbow's coming underneath my hip, I don't get caught on it. So that I can pop out here and intercept that switch to the back.
Okay. Yeah, I have found that I've gotten stuck, so that was a really good detail to bring up because I've been like, anytime I try to turn, I'm getting stuck. I didn't even realize it was over my own arm.
Out of curiosity,
There's two ways to not get stuck on your arm, and those are really the two that I just showed in those two scenarios. One is, okay, if both of my arms, right, are up, and the other is if the bottom arm can sneak under your hip and then come out. And really, it's contextual depending on what's more available to you in that moment from that particular position.
so I have a kind of a follow-up to that. I did notice when Arthur was going, and there's two different ways I think about it. He's really hips up to maximize his pressure with the head, where I tend to be a little bit more hips down in order to allow myself more mobility to attack the arm. So I guess, and I could try it here with Vic as well. But my only thought is if the pressure is lower, is as she goes, I feel like I have enough room to snag that arm, but I don't know if I do or don't yet. So you go across like you, Sean.
Yeah. So put your other one, Vic.
And that's where I tend to go.
Yeah.
I sit through and I attack those arms. The second I feel someone cross under my hips, that's why I stay lower so I can do that little hip switch I did, and I immediately attack that Kimura there. And then that continues my attack on the shoulder.
Yeah. So Vic, keep your arm a little bit lower.
This one?
No, the right one. When you do that.
Keep this lower?
Yeah. So not up on the hip. In other words,
Okay.
if you bring it down like almost to the knee. Yep. And now scoot yourself down a little bit. Yep. So you're kind of pushing yourself slightly away from the hand at the same time you're feeding the left one through.
Okay.
Yep. Shoot the left one through. Good. And now bring that thumb. Yes, there you go. Bring that thumb of your left arm straight down towards the mat. Because if you leave it up by his hip, it's going to be easy to snag.
Mine.
Okay. Yeah. Lower.
Shake that big head forehead at me there, Arthur. I see you.
How about you, Jeff? One more time, just to go on. So I'm actually stopping here, but I wouldn't. Okay, but go to snag this arm as it's coming through. Okay, easy to snag, right? So this time. So again, I'm not going to just push on this for very long because it's a tell of what I'm doing. It's like kind of momentary. Just scoot down, shoot it through. Watch where this arm goes. Okay. It's going low to the mat. It's going to be hard to catch in there, especially if you're turning in your own space. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
It's like day one principles that we talk about, which is keeping the elbows close to the body, since that's the danger arm of not letting that elbow. Even when you rotate, you're on that last one, you didn't extend your elbow really from your body by more than, that much.
So the way I usually think of that is, I mean, it's interesting, right? I think you know this, but when they did one of those studies, statistical studies in sport jiu-jitsu, it turned out that the number one quote unquote sweep, like points reversal for points, was basically like kind of a tackle. Mm-hmm. And so what happens, kind of to your point of what you're seeing, is that some movement would be initiated, and then you would see that because of the level of athletes being high and their awareness being high, a lot of times the textbook version wasn't being completed, but there was some sort of attempt to unbalance, to sweep, or to do a reversal. And then it would basically turn into a tackle finish at some point, right? And again, we're talking about, like, we'd like to avoid that because there's a higher degree of athleticism coming in, but sport jiu-jitsu is also two trained athletes. So what I would say is there's something to that, where instead of thinking so linearly about, like, I'm trying to do the textbook version as a sweep and I haven't been able to complete it, is instead of thinking like a tackle is like this athletic explosion running the person down, instead what I think of is, to your point, how can we take that same concept and apply it to a situation and do it like as technically and non-athletically as possible, is we just start looking at, really, I'd say two things. Number one is sort of like the line of force and the vector goes back to angles. And number two is, what are the handles? So whether we have a gi and cloth to grab or not, what are the handles that we can actually use to our advantage? And the thing that's interesting about that is the handles are always the same, no matter if we're on top or we're on bottom, right? And this is nothing new, right? It's not earth-shattering, but it's like, how do you actually climb somebody's body? How do you maintain a degree of control, right? It could be the ankle, it could be behind the calf, it could be over the knee on the thigh, it could be the hip. Kind of depends on which direction they're facing, what's the better grip, all the way up to grabbing underneath somebody's shoulder or around their head for a necktie. And it's just kind of using those. But the idea would be, and you're much the more proficient deep half guy, right? But if you come on in here, but let's say I have deep half, right? And I feed it. And then as I start to come over, right, from here, Arthur catches his base, and he's going to try and run away from it, right? So I initiated it. He started to go over, but now before I can really maintain control, he's running on me. Okay, so go ahead. So sometimes for people, it's just a matter of just kind of staying with it and going, the moment that I have disengagement, whereas you said he kind of backs out of it, the moment I lose connection on him with the position I wanted to have, I can always go back and see if there was a way for me to keep it, like where I lost it. But in that moment, what do I have immediate access to the moment that he's leaving that situation, right? So I know that if I wanted to have it such that from here, okay, I've had control all the way through to the finish. So the connection gave me the tactile sensitivity to say that was intact all the way through to the completion. Full completion. Now I'm starting to pass, right? 2-point conversion if we're in jiu-jitsu competition. But the other thing is just to have the connection tell me in the same way it told me I had completion in that scenario, in the other scenario, the breaking of connection tells me to immediately go to the other handle and change my angle, right? And that's going to be a little bit different in every single moment based on what counter he's using to back out of that position. But you just want it to be like a pressure sensor again. I always use that analogy. Pressure sensor tells me when I keep going with the sweep. Pressure tells me when I need to change my angle, get a different handle, and go where he's not, right? And in that particular case, when we did that, he started to kind of wheelbarrow walk away from me. So I came up, I believe, trapped his thigh and took the back and then pulled him off to the side where he didn't have any base, so he tips over, right? Go ahead. Yeah. Squeeze it super tight, right? So from here, so just transfer weight. That's one way to get it kicking off pretty quickly. Just transfer weight from your backhand through the frame. And it's not about doing this, right? It's just about, it's a Turkish getup, right? So from here, line of force goes to here, right? So that's all I'm doing. I'm just doing a little bit more of a horizontal plane. It's just a way to break that stalemate. You know, I'm not going to go for that right away necessarily if he's in motion right now, but if all he's doing is just sitting there and like doesn't want me to get an underhook or something, then especially if I have a gi on, like this is super easy. Let's make that frame from here. But like I said, if you just want to get it moving, right, like that. Cool thing is too that if he tries to arm drag right here, like come around the back, okay, go ahead.
Usually they go single leg on me when I do that.
Around the back. Okay, see this?
That's easy. It's the single leg attempt that's a pain in the butt. They all go single leg on me and grab the foot as I back out.
Yeah, this leg.
Yeah. Then I get caught in that thing, yeah.
Feels like I'm
Which is
choking
normally
myself.
fine.
By
Which
the
is
way,
normally fine. It's when they're 180 plus, I start to have a pain in the butt with the motion.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing though. If this is a gi, if this is a gi, right? I'm actually pulling that really tight. Okay, so when you pull on my leg, keep going. His neck is a limiting factor there. As he pulls on my leg, he's actually choking himself. He's relying a little bit more here, right? Pressure, right? Here's no good, right? So what I want you guys to feel virtually right now is that right now I'm kind of hunkered down with all my weight this way, but I have no weight on you, right? Now, pressure? Yeah. Yes. So now I feel him really engaging this frame and this one here, okay? So what I would probably do here, because there's nothing bothering me on this side, is I would probably shift my angle, right, and drop in here. So what I did there was, instead of thinking of push this knee down, he's so loaded on this side that what I'm actually doing, okay, is going up on the balls of my feet. I'm going to take a little ride with this bottom knee, okay, and drop into that space. Clear path.
It's more at step A. In Arthur's position, people are like with the leg that's on the bottom is like pulling, but the leg that's in the hip notch is like, you know, you're bridging a little bit at the same time, so you're pushing and pulling, and I feel stuck there.
I see.
Makes sense?
So I think the main thing is like, he's got a half guard on bottom. He's got a knee in the top. He's curling on the bottom. He's pushing in here. So what happens is my body looks like this. It's kind of forcing me here. So that's what I'm saying. Before anything else occurs in here, okay, can I start to transfer weight onto him? And the thing is, if it's just about rocking forward until I can get my balls of my feet on the mat. That could be hard if somebody's way bigger than you, right? Because like, you're like, well, how can I rock forward when I've got this push-pull pressure? But the thing is, before I can rock my weight forward, I can actually change my posture. So yeah, this is getting like super ninja nuances here, but this is great. So from here, I want you to kind of curl in with your bottom leg and push me with the top knee. Okay. So right now I kind of feel it's hard for me. Like I can't get onto the balls of my feet right now. I can't actually make that switch, but what I'm going to do, keep doing that, right? What I'm going to do actually is start to come up with my hips first. Okay. So right now I'm kind of planted. Keep doing it. Change my posture. Now I just made the transfer. See it?
Yeah.
I can either come forward, or if you're really blocking me there, right? I'm making it block me. Now I change.
Okay.